Welcome, DBZ fans. Team Anti-Meta here. I'm Joey.
I'm Jake.
And we're going to be showing off the Nappa deck that Jake just recently played at a local tournament.
Start off with the mastery. I went with the Insane Empowered Mastery mainly because of the hit effect. The hit effect is it's very great against going against other physical decks because they're constantly trying to keep me down in stages, and this constantly will bring me back up every time I hit them. Another reason I did not go with the other mastery is because I'm not trying to win by MPPV, I'm trying to win by beatdown. That's the way I've played since I started this game, and that's the way I'm probably going to keep it. So, I also not a huge fan of the hit effects for discarding Durns for the flat physical. So next, we have Nappa level 1. It's a great physical for 3 stages, and it keeps your opponent's allies off the board. He's at B all the way until 0 and has a PUR of 2. So level 2 is great because every time you perform an attack, if you level that combat or de-leveled, all your opponent's personalities lose 2 stages, and it's not to a minimum. So if your opponent has, say, 2 allies and his NPR at 0, when you perform an attack, they'll have to discard the top 3 or top 6 of their deck because 2 for each of the personalities. And even if it's not, it's still 1 loss. So at level 2, it's always great to just constantly enter and keep them down low. Level 3 is great because you have a flat physical for 7. And then if it hits, you get to banish a drill or ally. Now the one thing that sucks about the level 3 is if your opponent doesn't have any drills or allies, then you're going to have to banish one of your own, because I do run Vegeta and Turles in this deck. Level 4 hits like a truck. You get +4 on all your attacks, and then if they're at 0, which if you're playing this deck right, they'll be at 0 a lot, none of your attacks can be prevented. So I never got to level 4 during the tournament. The highest I hit was 3, but you're not exactly trying to level to 4 right away. You're kind of just sitting on 1's not a bad thing, but getting level 2 and constantly lowering them is great, and level 3 at the 7 physical is always great. But that's not your main priority of this deck. So I'm going to start with Nappa's name cards. So Nappa's Energized Charge is a physical for a flat 6 stages, and its effect is really great for any physical beatdown deck. So the number one problem with physical beatdown decks is as soon as you get them down to 0, they may level from anger or some other effect. So this really helps because as soon as they would level that combat, they set their power level to 0. Next we have Nappa's Confidence. Nappa's Confidence, you choose a personality in play and they lose 4 stages, and it's not to a minimum. So if the personality you choose is at 0, then they will have to do that in their life cards then, which is great. And if that personality was at 0, you may banish a setup drawer ally, which is great for board control. So first we're going to talk about the deck. So I run 3 Nappa's Energized Charge. Then I run 3 Saiyan Direct Strike. It's great for endurance, it has a nice AT +3, and it has 2 life cards, which is great for chip damage off the deck. Next, I run 3 Saiyan Lifting Kick. It's a great card because it has Endurance 3. It's an automatic anger lower, which was probably one of the biggest problems with this deck at first. And the damage is alright, it's just AT life. It's not that great since Nappa doesn't ever get past C. But the hit effect is also nice considering that quite a few people are running Sinister Choke and Death Blows and stuff. So that really helps to constantly keep my stages and less life card damage. So probably one of the best cards for this is 3 Elbow Drops. It costs 1 to use, but it is AT +3 and you can use it twice. Even if they do stop it, it still stays in play to be used a second time. So with the mastery, it's also 2 anger and possibly 6 stages gained. Death Blow helps because it's anger lower, gives me anger, and it really helps against matchups like Namekian with all the banishing. Next we have Saiyan Body Blow for the attached cards, because you know Saiyan loves their attached cards. Then we have Saiyan Overhead Kick, which is probably one of my favorite cards from this new set. It's a physical that you get to search your life deck for a Saiyan ally and place it at 5 above 0. It's a flat 4 stages, but with all the modifiers between level 4, Tree of Might, and Vegeta and Turles, it can hit for quite a bit. Next we have setups. So I run 1 Tree of Might. I run 3 Saiyan Flight, which has Endurance 1. It's the only setup attack for Saiyan, which is a really great card. So it's considered to be name card for your card effects, which doesn't matter with this deck. But it is a flat 5 stages, which is great considering Nappa has low power stages anyway. So it helps against like 18 or any big 18 or big power level attackers. And then if it hits, you can rejuvenate it 1, which can get you an anger, or it could help with menace. Which next, we have Saiyan Menace. Saiyan Menace is a great card. I'm pretty sure everyone knows what it does by now. So if it's rejuvenated, you can put it into play. And then its power is all your opponent's personalities to lose 3 stages. It's great because it's not to minimum 0. So you can use this to do a big chunk of your opponent's damage if they run allies. Next, we run 3 Saiyan Enraged. Great because if you really need to level, like you really need to get pressure on your opponent, and you say you're on like level 2, this is a great card to use for advancing. Plus, it helps with Saiyan Menace. It's like the bottom card is Saiyan Menace. You can put that into play, and since you're going to be beating down your opponent, they'll be probably low, and you can draw a card and keep more pressure on. Next, I run 2 Saiyan Peace, which is great against people who level. So, like any red deck or orange deck that runs Devouring, you can send it back down, and then they'll be at 5 above 0. So it's not as big as a hindrance if they went to full. Next, I have events. So I run 2 Saiyan Interruption. I was running Uppercut, but I felt this was a lot better considering that if I came up against like Black Krillin, I can really use the effect, or against any black deck that runs Power Up, I can stay in combat longer. Plus, if it's not black deck and they don't have cards like Blinding Energy Move to stop combat, I can still just pitch it from my discard for 5 stages. I run 1 Strength Test, basically for the Namekian matchup, so I can constantly keep banishing their discard. Next, I run 1 Saiyan Rescue for the rejuvenating, and this is mainly in here to rejuvenate the menaces and get them back into play. Next, I run 2 Stare Down. 3 is nice, but I just feel like, for me, I think 2's probably the best spot. I can't really think of anything to take out for a 3rd, but 2's been working just fine for me. Next, I run 3 Confidence. Now, Drive-By is a great card for this deck for multiple reasons. It's damage, it's also defense for putting a card with Endurance on top, and it's also another way to get Menace back into play. I run 3 Saiyan Outrage for it's another block and it gets tapped cards out. The obvious Time is Warrior's tool. Next, I run 3 Saiyan Hand Swipe. The endurance is great. I can easily stop energy attack with it, and it's extra damage on my next attack for 3 life cards. Now, one of the biggest things about this deck that's great is Saiyan's stage loss blocks. So this has helped me in so many matches that you wouldn't even believe. Like, against any heavy energy deck, losing 4 is quite a big deal, considering that even if they're at 0, it won't end up like milling them at all, but it does keep them down low, and they're low pretty often. Next is my one and only physical block, which is Saiyan Wrist Block. I run this over Lightning Dodge. Yes, Lightning Dodge is one more stage, but I like Wrist Block more, mainly because it's not to a minimum of 0. And lastly, I run Vegeta and Turles. The only way I really have to get these guys out, besides drawing into them, is the Saiyan Upward Kick, but that's always been enough since I run 3 of it. I always start off with getting Vegeta out because it works with his level 1 and 3, because it just any physical, where Turles has to be styled. So getting Turles out is usually second, unless Vegeta's like banished or in the discard and I can't get him out. And so that's the deck. So real quick, I'm going to talk about a couple combos which I did mention earlier, which mainly involve Menace. So one combo with Menace is using Rescue to constantly put it into play. So that's a pretty simple one. Another one, which is probably one of my favorites, is Drive-By. So you get to put a big endurance card like Direct Strike on top, and then you get to destroy however much anger you have, and you get to put Menace back into play. Now, here's one that's kind of hard to pull off, but it is really beneficial when it does, which I did against one person in top 4, which was a fellow Saiyan player named Jake, who was playing Blue Protective Godku at the tournament. So what I did was I used Menace, and then I used Flight, and then from the hit effect, Menace went back into play, and at the time I had 2 Menace and 2 Flights in play. So I had used Menace, used Flight, so then that came back in play, and then I used Menace again, used Flight again, so it came back in play, and then I used Menace 2 more times for a total of using Menace 4 times in one combat, which is really hurt him. So that's all I have for this deck list. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.